So now that you're learning how to add color to your web pages through CSS, adding background colors, changing the color of your text, and possibly even adding backgrounds to some of your HTML elements, such as the heading, a paragraph, or one of the states of your links, let's talk about some of the basic design principles about how to apply color to your website. So I'm over here on the Adobe Color CC site, and I'll put a link on Blackboard to this. It used to be called Adobe Cooler. And there are a couple of different ways this site can work. And also, incidentally, there are lots of different sites for generating color themes, and you're welcome to use any of them. This is just the one that I've used the most. So first, let's just talk a little bit about color rules. There are 3 types of color rules that I think are used most often in web design, but you're welcome to look through all of them. And the 3 are analogous, and you'll see how my wheel changes here, and I'll go over that. Monochromatic, you can see how it changes, and complementary. So, I mean, you can certainly look through all of them, and and this last one is to make a custom one. So let me go through them kind of quickly. Analogous means you're taking a group of colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. So for example, they'd all be like in the warm tones, or they'd all be in the cooler tones. If you want to see a different color and what the other colors would be, you can just click on that middle color and move it over, and now you're going to get a group of other 5 different colors that are also analogous and close to each other on the color wheel. So you can experiment with moving this around and getting this other group of colors. And you can even push it in or out so you could get more muted colors, or if you push it out, more saturated, brighter colors. I can also scroll down here, and what I get is the RGB values and the hexadecimal values for each one of these colors. And once I can also click on a color, and I can go in and do some different color adjustments directly through this. It's kind of like a timeline in a way, but it's for the specific colors. And so once I've decided, hey, these are the colors I like, I can just copy these values, whichever one, the hexadecimal or the RGB, over into Dreamweaver. If you're using the hexadecimal, you just need to add the hashtag in front. Okay, let's go through another one. Let's go through monochromatic. So monochromatic, as you can see, will give you 5 different colors that are all related to each other. They're all the same hue, they're just different tone values. And I can do the same thing. I can kind of click in here and get different hues and see how they look. I get a good visualization, and I could also choose any one of these and go in and say, oh, I want it to be slightly more green, or I want my light blue to be slightly more pinkish, and you'll see how it'll automatically adjust all the other ones. And then the third one that is commonly used is complementary. And complementary colors are color opposites. So these are the brightest colors that have the most contrast. And same thing, you can go through and tweak them here and see the examples. And maybe you want complementary colors that are a little more muted, so you're going to drag them in. Remember how I talked about that color wheel and the way that the computer sees color? Closer to that inner circle there, that's each color is reaching its 255. It's kind of full blast, and that gives us white. So as the colors are out here, we're getting more saturated colors. So now, what do these colors mean? Well, complementary colors, because they're color opposites at extreme, tend to have a much more playful feeling to them. So you wouldn't really see, let's say, like a hospital website that's using complementary colors. But maybe something, it even could be a design website, but you want it to feel kind of more playful. Definitely for something that's oriented towards kids or younger people, you would want to use this kind of complementary color scheme. Because as you can see, there's a lot of contrast there, a lot of high bright. So I have let's move this so my other colors are not so muted, and you can really get some examples of how extremely bright, almost kind of like circus colors. So it definitely has a more playful association with it. Monochromatic, very calm. This could work well for a lot of different sites. Monochromatic and analogous, I think, are both very, very common. And I'm just going to switch over to something that's a little more, I need to take that middle one and move them over more kind of like this way. So you can see that they're both in a way kind of similar. It's just that analogous, they're slightly different hues. They're just next to each other on the color wheel, where monochromatic is taking the same hue, it's just changing the saturation. So these both have a kind of calm association with them. They are appropriate for many different kinds of websites. The general principle that I follow, though, is if you are using either one of these, you want to make sure that you have some white added on your website as well to really break up all of these colors. If you don't add white, it gets to be very difficult to read. And so I'm going to show you some examples here in a second that all use white in interesting ways. All right, so let's just start looking over here at some examples. So here's one that they've used a ton of color in the background, which can be very, very difficult to do, to have all this color here, because it gets to be hard to see what's going on, to be able to see the different bits of text. But as you can see, the way they handle that is to create contrast on the web page by using white. There are a couple of other things that they're doing here. We could certainly analyze this for hierarchy. They have the words, fasten your seatbelts. This is the most important text that they want us to see. So it is the largest, and it's all capitals. And we can see how the text is really kind of split up into different regions. We could actually map this out and see that it makes a nice little grid. But to kind of split it up so it doesn't feel all boxy, like this entire area here is all in white, it's rotating. So here we have this kind of reddish orangish background with white text, and here they've rotated. So we have that same color for the text, and we have the white background. So there's a visual consistency. There's a lot of contrast. They're using color, but it's also very consistent. They haven't used an additional color here. So what we're thinking about when we're adding color is also being consistent. We don't want to add too many colors. But with just really working with these two particular colors here, the result is, first of all, we can see all the text very clearly, but it also allows all the colors in this slideshow to really pop out. So let's take a look at this example, which is actually from your book, the Web Designer's Idea book. It's in that section, Muted with a Rainbow of Colors, I think is what it's called. And this is a really nice example of using monochromatic, so you can see all of these different shades of green. But yet, what did they use to really let things pop out? It's the white. So if they didn't have the white here, the entire page would be too muted, and you wouldn't be able to decipher all the different information. So you can see, even just here, to be able to create some hierarchy, instead of allowing all the text to be black, the heading categories are in white. So white is, again, a really key element to making things pop out. This is another example taken from your book in that section, Muted with a Rainbow of Colors. So here, the majority of the site, it's just kind of traditional black and white. There's a little bit of blue here. But again, they're doing that trick of, here we have text that is black on white, and over here we have text that is white on black. So it's both are easy to read, but it's creating a nice amount of contrast, and it keeps the page moving so it's not too boring. The color schemes that are in here, and you can see there's like a little bit of a drop shadow or reflection thing, they're all kind of muted, but it really allows them all to pop out. And then they add a whole set of colors up here at the top, but these colors aren't really competing. They don't seem too chaotic. They're not really competing with the rest of the web page, because the rest of the web page is pretty subtle in terms of its colors. So they're, as described in the book, really kind of muted colors. And then we have another example here, kind of like the first one that we looked at, where they use a lot of color in the background. But the way they've done it, so that we can actually see things, is they've used white for the text, so it allows the text to really pop out. So we wouldn't want to have, let's say, black text on this dark color, because it's going to be too difficult to read, or even like a yellow text. In general, you want to keep your text either black or white, or colors very, very similar. And what you're always looking for is to be able to create contrast. I'm going to jump over here for 1 second and talk about this. I can just pull this up once. So if you're going to use very high contrast, like I have here, so white text up against a black background, or yellow text against a dark purple, so using complementary colors, limit it to small sections of text. Don't put an entire term paper printed like this. It's too contrasting and too difficult to read. and add additional amounts of space between the lines to make it easier to read, just like I've done here. So you really have to be conscious that it's difficult for people to read on the web, and we're going to have a whole other lecture about that. So if you're going to use this high contrast, just do it in small sections. Here's kind of like a little summary. So in general, try to keep the large amounts of text on a very light or white background. Use black or near black text for the paragraph text, or use white against a very dark background, such as the blue or the kind of the red colors that we were seeing. So again, you're looking for contrast. If you want to keep with sort of a traditional background of just using white and black text, you can still add color, but you can add color to sidebars, to lines, to other different elements on the page. All the color doesn't have to be right there in the entire background. This will be easier to do as we move on and we move to the next levels of CSS. Right now, all we know is how to add color through the background. If you want to add color to the background of, let's say, one of your paragraphs or to a heading, then I definitely recommend you also need to add padding, because if not, it's just going to look like a tight little box of color around your section. And I can just jump over here to Dreamweaver. Remember when we were talking about, in my index here, I have some color added to the background of my rollovers in the hover state, but it also has a padding added to that state. So that way, I'll just go up here, it's added to my link. I have a padding of left and right 20 pixels and top 10 pixels. And I can add, I'll just copy this and add it to the bottom as well. Change that to bottom. And now let's look at that. So it really makes a big difference. It starts to give it a presence versus if I didn't have any padding. I'll just go and erase that. So then it's just the white ends up looking like it's crowding in the text. So we always want to make sure that there's space between the edge of our text and the background that it's on, its edge. And we're going to do that through padding. Okay, so I hope this gives you a whole bunch of things to think about in terms of now what you're going to do with all that CSS that you're learning and how to add colors, and to be very conscious and thinking about what colors you want to add to your web pages.